Denis Campbell's with us. He's editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine. He also hosts Worldview with Denis Campbell on YouTube at youtube.com/worldviewshow. Denis, we talked a couple of days ago on the show about the election of Iranian President Rouhani and the possibility that his statements expressing some interest in having diplomatic conversations with the United States, in letting us figure out exactly what is going on with that nuclear program, which he has said never intended to make nuclear weapons. So we've been exploring the possibility of newfound diplomatic talks with Iran. And now, of course, we have this snub of President Obama. Explain to us what happened.
Well, depending on whose account you believe, the president was supposed to accidentally bump into Rouhani. Now, whenever somebody says someone's about to accidentally bump into another world leader, that is usually a very well planned and orchestrated event. In this case, it looks as though it's a snub on one level. It's a very badly mishandled press opportunity by the White House press office, which has had a history of these sorts of things. At the very least, it's an embarrassment to the president. At the most, it's more Putin-like behavior, trying to show the world that the United States is not as strong as they used to be.
So what exactly does the possibility of some newfound diplomatic conversations between Iran and the U.S. And Iran and other U.S. allies actually look like at this point? Is that a realistic expectation?
Who knows? I mean, with the start of every new administration, and particularly democratic administrations, there is this tendency to sort of paint things with a much rosier outlook. For example, back in the 90s, when Bill Clinton assumed office, he traded the Mujahideen al-Khaliq, or the People's Mujahideen of Iran, the resistance movement, basically put them on the terror watch list as a payback to hopefully make the new regime look more favorably and consider stopping their nuclear programs and their basic troublemaking in the region. Nothing happened then. Nothing happens now. The key thing to remember with Iran is that the mullahs, the ayatollahs, the clerics control everything, and Rouhani has his own tea party in the form of those clerics. These are the hardliners. These are the ones who are chanting death to America, calling America the great Satan. Those are the ones in the street with the demonstrations.
Well, so that people have a little more information on that, Denis, I have in front of me some of the pictures from this military parade that took place in Iran. And this was simultaneous to the Iranian president making some overtones and doing some diplomatic showings here in the U.S. You have signs where, while in English they said "down with America," in Persian and Arabic they said "death to America," for example.
Exactly.
And I have a number of these. So it appears that behind the scenes, not much has changed, as you're alluding to.
Well, you don't all of a sudden undo 30 years of hostilities in one day. I mean, and this is, I think, is why Israel is very concerned. I think what President Obama wants to accomplish in his second term is what every second-term U.S. president wants to abolish: some sort of broad signature peace deal in the Middle East. Whether it's Jimmy Carter with Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin. Somebody can have either a Camp David Accord or a summit where everybody comes together, agrees that things are going to change, but nothing really does change. And so until and unless you see major changes there, you're not going to see much change in the way in which the U.S. is treated. What I love is how the U.S. mainstream media has just bubbled over and frothed at the mouth since he was elected at this new, again, quote unquote, moderate Iranian president. Let's keep in mind that this Rouhani, Dr. Rouhani, has been in the government for quite some time. He's been with the hardliners, and he may be the more moderate-looking face, but history has shown us that they will tend to do in Iran whatever they want to do. Now, the pressure is likely to come from inside the country. They're facing a lot of the same economic problems, largely because of sanctions against them. They have a very dispirited young population, but like in most of the Middle East, the average age is under the age of 30, while the power lies with the people who are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, just as we saw in Egypt. So if there is revolutionary change, it's likely to come from within. Rouhani is trying to say the right things to keep those people satisfied, but he's also walking that tightrope, and he knows he has to keep the hardliners satisfied as well.
Yeah, and what would be you're bringing up something we've discussed often, which is similarly to how the majority of the constituents of the Catholic Church don't agree with the Catholic Church positions on most social issues. The average Iranian citizen does not also represent the views from the regime. But I'm curious, more broadly speaking, when Syria was being discussed, the effect and importance of how it would affect Iran was being discussed. When we've talked about any number of uprisings in the Middle East, Iran seems to be kind of in the background as either an ally, a fomenter of what's going on, or otherwise involved there. So would there be some very specific to Iran significance of an increase in newfound diplomatic relations?
Well, they're clearly becoming, if they weren't already, a major power in that region. I mean, they've got a relatively stable government, they've got a relatively stable military, and they have a lot of power. They're very much involved in Iraq. Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki is a complete puppet of the Iranian regime, because the one thing Maliki doesn't want to have happen is a repeat of the Iran-Iraq war, because it's likely they would lose this time. They don't have as organized a military in Iraq as they did under Saddam. When you look at Jordan, you look at a country that is feeling a tremendous amount of pressure from over 2 million refugees out of Syria. They're also seeing the hard right-wing clerical militant side being stoked by Iran. The Muslim Brotherhood were supported by Iran. They're sticking their fingers wherever they can to mess things up. Same in Turkey, same in other parts. And they like that instigator and that newfound power role, even if they don't have the economic power because of the sanctions to back it up. So it's a real dangerous situation. Should we proceed, and should we be trying to deal with this administration? Yes, but trust and verify.
All right, Denis Campbell, editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine. Check him out on YouTube, youtube.com/worldviewshow. Denis, great to talk to you. Thanks for being here.